This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Finish your fantasy lineup?
No, but I'm joining this paid group chat with insider info.
Dude, seriously? Forward it to me. Security alert from McAfee. That group's as legit as that knockoff jersey you're wearing.
McAfee's scam detector is available in all McAfee plans for as little as $39.99 for your first year. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch has finally landed on Disney+. Now you can watch the global phenomenon at home with your Ohana.
Be good for 1 second.
Lilo & Stitch is verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 93%.
Perfect.
Stitch is also cute and fluffy.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch, rated PG, now streaming on Disney+. And right now, you can get Disney+, Hulu, and all of ESPN with an incredible limited-time offer. Terms apply.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift. Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit rei.com.
This episode is brought to you by... Oops. I've got a box of Cheez-It crackers staring at me, and I just wanted that irresistible cheesy crunch. Sorry, that was a total snacksident. What was I supposed to be talking about? So salty, so crunchy, so cheesy. Whoops, lost my train of thought. I've heard of brain freeze, but brain cheese? I'll just have one more Cheez-It cracker, and then I'll get back to it.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Spread right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network, streaming live on Twitter and YouTube. And we've got one of my favorite guests here on the line. We've got my guy, Roy Burton. You can follow him on Twitter at the BS Line. Roy, how we doing?
Doing pretty good, Mark. How you doing, my friend?
I'm hanging in there. I brought Roy on. We're in the heat of the fantasy playoffs here, Roy Burton. That is I think that's the main reason I reached out to Roy. That's my fantasy plug right there, Roy. We love talking all things fantasy football in the preseason, and here we are. People are, it's coming down to it in leagues. You're fighting to make the championship. You're fighting to make it into the money potentially in your league out there. So people focus on the fantasy championship next week. I actually always think about this week, getting to that fantasy championship as kind of like the key fantasy football playoff week. So I brought Roy on to talk some NFL, talk some fantasy playoffs. But then last night, VJ Edgecombe happened. How do I start the show with anything but what VJ did last night? I mean, to Ian Eagle yells out Valdez, Drexel, Edgecombe Jr. And I think all the hairs on my arm started to stand up in that moment. But watching VJ close that game last night felt like, to me, I mean, we've had a lot of fun moments this year, and this was not a year we expected to maybe be as fun as it has been. I think last night was by far the most fun moment we've had so far as a Sixers season.
It's always special to kind of go into Madison Square Garden and get a win, right? Like, there's something about that building. I know we hate on the Knicks, we hate on New York a lot in this city, but there's something about that building. And when you go into New York and you beat a really good Knicks team, the NBA Cup champions, right? You can go into New York and get a win over that team. It feels really good, and it feels even better when your young guard, VJ Edgecombe, has probably his second best game of the season. Obviously his debut was amazing, but coming into a game like that, against the Knicks and, shutting down, but making Jalen Brunson work as hard as he did, I mean, that's an amazing, amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, it was, and it's like, it's beyond the numbers with VJ. It's when you watch him, this is what it should feel like when you're watching a rookie figure it out and develop into what we think is going to be maybe a star. Like, I feel like in a couple years, if he's the star we're hoping he might become at this point, we'll look back on this and be like, that's what it should feel like in that rookie year, because you see what he does in clutch time, and you see what he does diving for balls on the ground in a way that I don't know if I've seen a Sixer averaging above 10 points do in like 15 years at this point. Like, he just has all of these it factor things that you're desperate for in the NBA, and we've been desperate for in Philadelphia with some of the guys that we have had. And it's hard to not start thinking crazy things about VJ Edgecombe when he has nights like last night.
No, that's the thing. It's like when you have a rookie playing this well, it's like it's hard to kind of to kind of temper your expectations, because again we saw a good rookie not too long ago in Tyrese Maxey, right? And he played well as a rookie, and each year basically he's getting better and better and better. So if VJ Edgecombe, has a similar trajectory to Tyrese Maxey, the Sixers could have one of the 2 or 3 best backcourts in the NBA, and that'd be amazing to watch for the next 10 years or so.
And they play again tonight. Sixers are playing the Mavs at home at 7:00. It'll probably be around third quarter of the Eagles game. So something tells me the city might not be too locked in on that Sixers game, but they are a 2.5 point favorite tonight. I actually liked the line at like -1, -1.5. Now it's at 2.5, 3. Probably going to lay off. Maybe I'll see if the line drops back down. But real quick, before we jump over to football, I have one more NBA pick here for today. I don't understand this line, Roy. Maybe you can help me understand what's going on here. At 5:00, Houston going to Denver, pretty darn good game. Probably it feels like one of the better games you can kind of hope for in the NBA right now. And the Denver Nuggets a home dog. I'm looking at the injury report, like, it feels like the same kind of guys who have been hurt for both teams are out. I'm shocked to see the Nuggets as an underdog here. I've been terrible betting the NBA this year, to be quite honest. I've been trying to get back on the right side of things here with only like a sparing number of bets, but I'm going with the Nuggets here. I don't get this one.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I'm looking at this line. I'm trying to figure out, looking at the schedule, see if there's something that makes sense with this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite get it. Yeah, and I think this is a good spot for the Nuggets. Yeah, give me the Nuggets in those points for sure.
I know they've won a bunch of games in a row too. Houston coming in, losing 2 straight in overtime. Like, maybe that's what they're saying, but it doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me. Real quick, before we get over to the NFL, let's talk a little college football. Let's pop over to the playoff. Last night we had Alabama come back after being down a whole bunch of points. They come back. I guess it was 17-0 to start the game, and 27 unanswered, or 27 unanswered. And I was trying to think of, like, in Oklahoma's standpoint, if you're a fan sitting in that stadium up 17-0, that, and Shane Half, I should probably ask him, Eagles pin pull guy right here. He's an Oklahoma fan. But that's got to be one of the highest moments you've had as an Oklahoma fan since, like, Adrian Peterson was on campus. Like, I mean, you think obviously, like, they had Baker and Jalen and Kyler, but those teams were like, you looked at those teams and it's like, those defenses were so fake. Nobody ever bought in. It was the 4-team playoff era, a little different. Bama and Georgia, and those teams were so dominant. I don't think people took Oklahoma seriously as a title contender in those years. I bet, you're sitting in that stadium up 17-0. You have Indiana next week. I bet there were some people looking up some flights and some hotels for the Rose Bowl. And I bet they were feeling pretty good about that Indiana matchup. And then the rest of the game happened.
Oh, so let me just ask you, do you think Alabama's for real? Like, do you think like this was a kind of a fluky thing, or can they make a little bit of a run?
I don't think it's a fluky. I don't think Oklahoma was that good.
No, neither do I. Yeah, I don't think Mateer's all that good, to be honest. I don't know if I'm wrong.
He's so flawed.
I am not sold on him as a quarterback at all. So yeah. I mean, he makes a couple decent plays a game, but he just does nothing for me. So
he's Riley Leonard from last year a little bit. Like, he's kind of, and Notre Dame had a much better team around Riley than Oklahoma does around Mateer, probably. So he doesn't have Jeremiah Love behind him, I guess you could say. So it's one of those things where, when you watch John Mateer 5 straight times run it right into the line of scrimmage, it's like, that's what we're doing. This is the offense here. Like, it gets a little repetitive and annoying. And I spent time on my show here complaining about Notre Dame multiple times. I don't need to do it. I don't want to be bothering people. Would I lie if I was saying that I was as jazzed up for this playoff as I have been the last few? I would probably be lying. But the whole thing that messed it up, I put aside the whole Notre Dame Miami conversation. The thing that messed up the entire playoff for Notre Dame was Oklahoma beating Alabama in a game they were outgained by 250 yards 2 months ago. Ty Simpson threw 3 interceptions, and Oklahoma also beat Auburn in a game that they were in SEC apology form away from losing. The SEC had to literally put out an apology for Auburn the next day. I'm not going to overreact to Alabama winning this game. I don't think Alabama can really go on a run. I don't think they can run the ball well enough. The defense is hit or miss. It feels like it's either really good or kind of just paper mache out there. But I will say, I think the line's around 6 against Indiana in the Rose Bowl. I saw as the look-ahead line. I'd probably lean Bama to cover the spread. I feel like Indiana wants to play these low-scoring games, and they kind of want you to play a close game with them. I could see that being a 17-14, 20-17 type of game. So I'd probably pick Indiana to win, but I do think Bama will keep it close. We have obviously today three CFP games. You have the one at noon, which is the big one of the day, where College Game Day is, with Texas A&M and Miami, and then you have the 2 G5 invitationals. We'll call them, with Oregon, JMU, and Tulane, Ole Miss. And the worst part about this is it'd be so much more interesting if you just would have flipped the G5s, because Tulane got the crap beat out of them by Ole Miss by like 40 points, to the point where Lane Kiffin was throwing alley-oops on the sideline to his players during the game. If you would have given me JMU, Ole Miss, and then Tulane, Oregon, I'm a little bit more interested, but I'm not betting on these games. I would lean towards Oregon and Ole Miss covering the big spreads, but you know me, I kind of stay away from these big numbers. Before we get to A&M Miami, anything on the other 2 for you?
No, I think you're probably right. Like I haven't seen the latest numbers, the spreads on both of those, but yeah, I would lean Oregon and Miss and Ole Miss in these games for sure.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around, I believe 20 and a half, and 17 and a half. So it's just too big for me to do it, because, you get a backdoor at the very end of the game when the other team has their backups in preparing for next week. Who knows? But the game that I do like, and besides Jalen Hurts' touchdown, which maybe not the best bet in sports anymore, I'll be honest, but that is my best bet for the day. But besides that, my favorite side of the day is Texas A&M. And I locked it in at -3 over on, let's just say, Michael Rubin's app, I guess is what we'll say.
There you go.
No free ads. But and Texas A&M -3 is where I went. And this is a dumb, I have my own football reasons for thinking A&M's a much better team than Miami, the schedule, and what we've seen really over the last couple months, despite A&M losing the last time we saw them. But I'd be lying if I said that the main reason that I'm confident wasn't watching Oklahoma blow that game at home last night. I think that's an anomaly. I think these first-round games at home sites is such an advantage, especially in these toss-up games. Give me -3. I think this number should actually be closer to 6.5, like right under a touchdown. So I like A&M to kind of handle business. I think it's going to be 31-17 type game.
Yeah, I think A&M is a noticeably better team than Miami. And you're right. Like, have this game at home, then that's another 3, 4, 5 points, however you want to put it. So, yeah, like I would pick A&M in a neutral site. So I definitely would pick them at home here. So yeah, so give me A&M. What's the line? 3? Yeah, I'd easily lay the 3 with A&M for sure.
Yeah, it's 3.5 out there. I was able to lock in a 3 at -115, but that's just a personal. I only do that really with 3 and 7, those key numbers that I'll swallow a -115 instead of a -110 or -105. But yeah, I'm going with A&M, and I feel like it really is a bet on Kyle Field more than anything. One of the toughest places to play. Even the last 10 years, it's not like Texas A&M's been world beaters most of that time. They're 58-17 at home in the last decade. They're undefeated at home this year, and this is the best A&M team I think, at least since Johnny. And I think overall, it's probably a better overall team. It's not just Johnny and Mike Evans running around throwing 70-yard out routes, but and just overall. Let me pull up the odds for the championship before we get over to the NFL. I'll ask you first. just if I tell you you've got to pick the champion right now, not odds, not who has the best value or who has the best path. I mean, I guess part of it is who has the best path, but if I tell you you've got to pick the champion, who are you taking?
All things considered, I might take Oregon. I think Oregon's a really good team. I think Oregon plus, with their odds, I mean, I think that's a really good bet. And I think obviously the path matters. I mean, today is, today's a little bit of a cakewalk. So, just given everything, I probably would put my bet down on Oregon for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually, I like Oregon a lot in the path that they got. I'm picking Oregon. I have Oregon going to the national championship, in my bracket, but where I'm landing, and I maybe I'm dumb for having this take because they're the favorite still. They're plus 210, Ohio State. I feel like I've noticed, just maybe this is me listening to the same 4 or 5 college football pods I listen to and following the college football experts I do and being in my own echo chamber of what I consume. I feel like I'm not seeing a lot of people picking Ohio State. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people picking Georgia, a lot of people picking Indiana. I feel like 2 weeks ago we were asking if we would take Ohio State to the field, and they lose that Big Ten championship game by 3. How much did that game? Were they, giving out were they calling that game like it was the most important game of the year to them the way Indiana was? I'm not as sure about that. In a game where you knew you were going to be the 2 seed if you lost instead of the 1 seed, it's hard for me to say I'm going to take everything away from that game instead of the fact that I'm doing my NFL my draft rankings early here. I'm pretty sure 3 of my top 4 players are going to be from Ohio State, which I know that that's not the end all be all, but you look at the first round, you look at these rosters all throughout the field, and to me, have they played a tough schedule? Not necessarily. Do they have all these incredible wins? Not necessarily. But I think I learned my lesson last year. I think that team was so dominant down the stretch. I think this team's better. I know Sayan didn't look great against Indiana. I think he's better than Will Howard. And I think maybe it's just the gap between them and the rest of the field feels different to me. I know Indiana beat them. I think that was Indiana's Super Bowl. And I think we kind of get a repeat of last year where Ohio State might go on a little bit of a dominant run. I will say, I do think that potential Final Four matchup with Georgia that's where you could see him go down, because Georgia, it's Kirby. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think that's where, people are kind of landing. I don't think people think the gap between Ohio State and everybody else is probably as pronounced as you do. Because, like you said, Georgia's really good. Oregon's really good. We saw, what happened in Indiana. So, I don't think people believe in Ohio State to be that much more dominant than everybody else. And then, in a tournament, anything can happen. So, you just kind of get caught one Saturday, Sunday, whatever, and then you lose. So that's why I think there's a little bit of a pessimistic attitude towards Ohio State than we've seen in past years.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if it's even worth betting like plus 210 to win the title, because I am pretty confident that they're going to. I would place them at like a 50% chance. If I was making odds, I would put them right at even money. So is it worth betting that? It's one of those things I kind of have to figure out. Maybe I throw it in a parlay with another future, an NFL future or something like that. I will say, I'm not talking college basketball. It's December 20th. It's not time for that on this show yet. I did lock in BYU 30-1 to win the title last night. I locked all the way back in May. I locked in Michigan 25-1 to win the title because I loved Yaxel Lenborg as an NBA draft prospect. He decided to not go to the NBA draft and go back to Michigan. So I locked in 25-1. They're the number 1 team in the country. They're plus 400 right now. So maybe one of the best preseason futures I've ever placed. I added BYU to that portfolio. I think DeBance is special. They've got a couple rebounders that I really, really like this BYU team. But let's shift it over. Let's talk a little NFL, and we'll talk some bets. We're going to preview the Eagles a little bit here, but let's kick it off with some fantasy football. I got to talk some fantasy football here. And as long as your matchup did not involve Matt Stafford or Puka Nacua, either way, whether it's for you or against you, you probably are in a close battle here. But, prayers to you if you had to go against them, or, congratulations to you if you had them. But I've been doing pretty well on DFS this year, Roy, which I feel like my last couple of years I've stunk up the joint. So it hasn't been a great fantasy year for me in my leagues necessarily, but I've done a lot better on DFS. This was one of the hardest weeks I've had all year to kind of put together my lineup. Usually how I kind of look at it is I have 1 or 2 locks, I would call it, 1 or 2 guys that they're pretty highly priced, but you look at the matchup, you look at what they've been doing lately, and it's no matter what, I have to have this guy in my lineup and I'm willing to spend. And then I always have one guy who's, whether he's between like 4,000 to 5,500 on DK Fantasy, that you're kind of ready to put him in the lineup to gain some points. Do you have any lineup locks this week for DFS?
Yeah, I think this is a huge week for the Lions, right? Coming off that loss last week. Like the Lions coming off a loss, I think are like either 11-1 or 12-0 against the spread over their last 12 games. Like the Lions are a very good team coming off a loss, and they're at home this week at a really good spot. So I am all in on the Lions. Like I have Lion stacks probably going to be like 80% of my DFS lineups this week. So Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, those are probably my two key guys. And then I'll build around those guys accordingly. But yeah, I love the Lions in this spot against the Steelers.
You're reading my mind here because I will go through my lineup as we go here. But I went Goff, Gibbs, JMO. I went 3 Lions, stack them up. Gibbs was who I decided to spend on this week. You look at that Pittsburgh matchup, and I just think this is a Gibbs go crazy spot. I have the Lions in a teaser with the Eagles today. I like that teaser, whether it's 6 points, 7 points, whatever you want to tease that down to. To me, it's basically a money line parlay. So I'm all in on the Lions to kind of put the smack down on the Steelers, who are feeling good on a short week coming off of beating Miami. I still don't think that defense is real at all. So I went with Goff, Gibbs, and JMO. My bargain basement guy, I guess he's not bargain basement because he's 5,400. It's not that cheap. My bargain of the week was Michael Carter. I'm just going to kind of bank on, a cheaper running back who's hopefully going to get a ton of carries with the injuries in Arizona. I guess I don't, it's a below, kind of a mid matchup for running backs. Atlanta allows the 19th most fantasy points to running backs. This is just kind of a hunch and on kind of workload here.
Oh, he's my guy too. Again, in my lineups, I'm going to have a healthy dose of Michael Carter. He's going to get more work than DeMercado for sure. So, like, this won't be one of those crazy, shootout 41-34 games. Like, this should be a pretty reasonable game, where Michael Carter gets, 18-ish touches or something like that. So for 5,400, that's a good deal. Let me ask you a question since we're talking cheaper guys. I'm trying to sell myself on Darren Waller this week. I know Quinn Ewers is the quarterback, but Darren Waller's $3,500. Is that a good play? Is that not a good play? I mean, I guess I could swap in Harold Fannin and go that way just because he gets a lot of volume. Darren Waller's been really good, and I know, quarterback change is a little bit different, but $3,500 is pretty appealing.
Yeah, I don't think I can trust Quinn. I don't think I can trust Quinn Ewers. I struggled at tight end this week as well. I feel anytime you take Goddard away from me as an option on Sunday, it's always tough. I always feel like he's underpriced. I went with Schultz. I went with Dalton Schultz at 4,200, so a little bit more expensive. Not even a great matchup. Vegas actually does pretty good against tight ends. I'm going to think that that's more of an anomaly than anything, but 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's had 12.5 and 21.6. He's had double digits in 5 of the last 7 weeks for Schultz. So I felt that was the best value I can find. The Waller thing makes sense, though. I mean, he's definitely been utilized here, but yeah, it's tough.
And Cincinnati is horrible. They're horrible against tight ends. They're absolutely dreadful against tight ends.
Guess what defense I'm using, by the way? I have to do it. It's Quinn Ewers. I understand the Bengals defense.
I understand.
I have to do it. I'm trying to get away with a cheap one here, but 2,500, give me the Bengals. I'll take the roll of the dice that Quinn Ewers drops the ball out of his hands a couple times or throws a pick or something. So it could get me negative points, but I'll go with the Bengals.
No, like I always, I love taking those defenses, playing those young quarterbacks. I mean, the Saints this week, really good choice. If you guys need a streaming defense out there in fantasy, really good choice to play the Saints this week and get the Jets. Brady Cook gave you 2 interceptions last week, so I wouldn't be surprised if he threw another one this week. So yeah, I love the Saints as well as another lower end defense.
And then just keeping it in the same matchup, my 2 other receivers in this DFS lineup, I went with Jacoby Myers, who just got a big contract, big payday. You think maybe they want to celebrate that a little bit with a little. I mean, he's the main focus of the game plan there in terms of being a receiver. He is really fit right in. Perfect. With that. I've always been a big Jacoby Myers fan, dating back to New England and San Fran, and I was big on him this year going into the fantasy season. So I definitely have him in a good amount of leagues, and it was a tough start to the year. And even when the Jags traded for him from like an NFL standpoint, I was kind of like, is this worth it? Like, are you even going to make the playoffs, Jacksonville? And now here they are. They could, win this game and be the 2 seed or something like that. But good for them. What a great trade, great contract. Jacoby Myers, absolute stud. But Cortland Sutton, I'm also going to go with as well. That feels really low to me at 5,700. That's maybe my favorite value of the week. It feels to me that should be like a mid-6 guy. Jackson was actually bottom 12 in points per game allowed to receivers. Bo Nix was slinging it last week. I kind of think that there's a chance that I know you look at that matchup, Jags Broncos, and you think maybe low scoring. I think both quarterbacks will be able to throw it around a little.
I think I'm always scared of, not always scared, but I'm often scared of those Denver wide receivers because there's just so much variance between those guys. Because like sometimes it seems like there's going to be a Franklin game, or sometimes it's going to be a Sutton game, or sometimes, hey, maybe we run the ball this week. So like they're one of the teams that I'm kind of scared of playing receivers just because of the variance with the outcomes. But I do love Jacoby Myers. I do want to mention, you and I have always we've talked about Jacoby Myers a few times. Like he's like a 1,000-yard receiver and nobody talks about him, which is kind of crazy in this league. And these last 5 games he's had averaging 15 fantasy points. Like he's really good. And he's a really good value. One guy I know it's a little bit of a gamble, but if you're trying to fit a guy into the lineup, if you're worthy of $4,400, it's just criminally low. I mean, I know I understand the situation of the Chiefs. They have nothing to play for at this point, and you got to be quarterback.
Sling it.
I mean, let's say you're going to have to throw the ball at some point. And it's either going to be Travis Kelce or Xavier Worthy. $4,400 is just way too low of a price point for Xavier Worthy. So, and I know he was priced at that because of the Rice thing. We weren't sure about Rice until later in the week. So I think you got to get Xavier Worthy in the lineup. See, like he's going to give you that much value at least.
Staying in that game, and this was my flex. This is my last spot on the roster, and I could not find someone who fit. Like everybody would be slightly more expensive than I needed. But I didn't want to lose anything else anywhere else. I'm going with Tony Pollard. The last 2 weeks, 31 and 21, and this matchup could be weird. Will the Chiefs defense look the same? Unmotivated here, and been getting a lot of carries down the stretch. So I don't love it, but I'm going with Pollard.
Thought about it. Like I was sitting there because I think it was like Pollard, and I was thinking of Kenny Gainwell, like a couple like guys like that, and I'm like. Like the Chiefs are really good against the run, but you're right. Like this is a very unmotivated Chiefs team with nothing to play for. It's going to be a low scoring game. Like, Tennessee's going to want to control the clock and grind it out, get a 17-14 win. This seems like a really good spot for Tony Pollard. You know what? I'll probably talk myself into it by the end of tonight, and I'll probably slide Pollard into a couple lineups for sure.
I love it. I love to hear it. And then just moving away from DFS and going to just the overall, the people out there fighting for their lives in the fantasy playoffs. And this isn't necessarily, your people aren't asking if they're starting, Devon Achane or not, or Jahmyr Gibbs or not. But just every year we see the name my mind always goes to is Todd Gurley. Guys who go on these week 16, 17, 18 kind of stretches, or I guess I should say week 15, 16, 17 stretches where they win people fantasy championships. People buy jerseys for these people. For me, it was Todd Gurley. That's the one I remember. He had an insane close to a season in his prime. Who's someone you could see people buying jerseys for over Christmas here because they got him to their fantasy championship or they carried him to a fantasy title?
That's a good question. Let's start with the guy who kind of wrecked DFS last week, Kyle Pitts, right? Like this could be a really good run for Kyle Pitts. Even though Drake London might, be back this week, Kyle Pitts has been playing out of his mind, like kind of recently. If Kyle Pitts gets the volume, I think it could be him. Another guy, Jacoby Brissett, right? Like he's been QB4 since week 6. Like every single week he comes out, throws it 40 times, gets 270, 280 yards and a couple touchdowns. Like he could be a guy, like again, like if you're in a spot where, you drafted a Jane Daniels or drafted a quarterback who you don't have anymore and you need to draft a guy, he could be a guy you can slot in for a couple games and get you 18, 20 points, win you your fantasy game, win you your DFS matchup that week. So yeah, I think it sounds weird, but Jacoby Brissett could be a league winner this year.
Yeah, no, I have him in a 2 QB league that I'm alive in, and he has replaced. I had Justin Fields as my second quarterback in that league, and Bryce Young was who I had for a little bit after that. And then, so he has replaced that black hole in my lineup over the last 5 or 6
Young's
weeks.
been good, though. Young's been good recently.
He's been better since I haven't needed to play. Since I've had Brissett on the roster and haven't needed to play him, Young has been better. But Brissett has been so consistent from a fantasy standpoint. And this is kind of, again, like no one's asking me if they're starting this player or not. But I do think, and everybody knows I loved this guy in the preseason, and for a long stretch of this season, I would say it did not pan out. Although I'm looking at it, and he's wide receiver 10 on ESPN right now. It would be very, I think, fitting here with, we have this is a good segue over to the Eagles. Mm-hmm. We have a game here that we can clinch the NFC East, and then maybe we have a game next week against the Bills that you're kind of playing for the difference between the 2 or the 3 seed. Doesn't it feel like they're going to pump the ball to A.J. Brown over these next couple weeks? And I know that they already have been doing that to a certain degree, but I think we get a lot of A.J. Brown, maybe some play action deep shots and some things like that to A.J. this game and in the fantasy championship next week. I think A.J. Brown's going to win some fantasy championships for people.
Yeah, I think this is a game, especially with this game today against the Commanders. I think it's going to be a similar script to what we saw last week against the Raiders. Try to get the run going initially because Saquon should have a really good time feasting on this Commanders defense. And then once the defense kind of opens up a little bit, throw a couple deep shots to A.J. Brown. Like you can get A.J. Brown loose against the Commanders. So, yeah, I think A.J. Brown and Saquon probably both feast today. Yeah, I'm really not concerned about this Eagles-Commanders matchup tonight.
And I guess I said I would segue over to the Eagles matchup, but real quick, I've got a fantasy stardom sit-em question that apparently ESPN thinks I'm dead wrong on.
Ooh.
In quarterbacks, I have 3 quarterbacks on this roster, and they've been every week they're ranked like within 3 spots of each other. It's insane. But on ESPN, they have Jackson Dart ranked 8th among quarterbacks this week. They have Caleb Williams ranked 9th among quarterbacks this week. They have Jared Goff all the way down at 12th. I'm going with Jared Goff. I'm starting Goff in this matchup, and they're telling me I'm wrong. The projections are telling me I'm wrong. Am I crazy?
Look, I typically, when it comes to quarterbacks, I typically lean to the team, that's probably going to be in the highest scoring game. Like you look at the total of that game, it's like 52 and a half, something like that. And we talked about, all those receivers before. So yeah, I think Jared Goff is the clear guy amongst those 3. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like a layup to me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And Jackson Dart obviously has an upside to him with the running. I think, I don't usually say this, but I do think at this point we could say with Dart that you have to be concerned about him leaving a game in the second quarter and you getting screwed in the fantasy playoffs. I'll take the steadiness of Jared Goff in this situation. And, I mean, we've seen Jared Goff have huge games as well. So it's like, I feel pretty good about that start sit-em. I was kind of shocked just looking now at the rankings and seeing that they think I'm a cotton-headed ninny muggins, I guess.
No, I think ESPN, I think by default, I think they kind of lean more towards the running quarterbacks, like the quarterbacks who give you a little something with their legs. But I mean, I've always said this about Goff. I've said this about Stafford. Like, it doesn't really matter if they don't give you anything with their legs if they throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like you're just gonna make that up in touchdowns and passing yards. So they don't give you 50 yards on the ground like Jackson Dart does. But it's fine because they'll find Amon-Ra St. Brown a couple times downfield and that'll make up for it.
And this is the deep one. One last one. I can't believe I have to decide this for an RB2 slot. Kamani Vidal or Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh, God.
Not great.
Yes, Vidal. Probably
Vidal.
Vidal.
What I lean to.
Yeah, I'll lean Vidal. I don't love it. Yeah, I'll lean,
Dallas. Maybe they get up early and they're just running the ball. All right. Enough of that. Let's talk some birds. Let's talk some Eagles. Obviously, you have the chance to clinch up the division here today. And I'm with you. I'm not concerned about this game. But what I will say, you can't mess around and lose this game. Like, if you lose this game, then next week the game matters against Buffalo. And, if you lose that game, which you'll be probably an underdog in, then week 18, you're playing for your life. And none of us want to deal with that. None of us want to be stressing for 3 more weeks about clinching the playoffs. And as far as I'm concerned, I very much want to rest the guys in week 18.
Agreed.
So this game is so important, I think, for the health of the playoff team once we get to the playoffs, more than, I guess, I should say, I do care how they look in this game. Like, I hope something I've been on lately is we haven't had a lot of these games to explode in and to have, like we did last week, 31-0, and you hold the team to 75 yards or whatever. And I do think there's part of me that is more confused about this Eagles team and season than I have been for any Eagles team and season of my lifetime, potentially. Like, you can tell me they lose in the first round by 20, and I'm not surprised. But also, let's just say, I'm not even going to say if they win the Super Bowl, if they make the Super Bowl. Let's say they win in the divisional round and they're in the NFC Championship. We have a week talking about the Final Four and we're in it. I'm going to feel pretty stupid for doubting this team if they do make it to that point. And I look back and I'm like, look at this schedule and compared to what the other teams have played. And everybody wants to say, oh, well, last week they played the Raiders. Go look at the Patriots and the 49ers and the Broncos and all these top teams that have rattled off these long win streaks. Go look at the schedules of those teams. They played a lot of Raider-type teams in the midst of those win streaks, and they seem to get credit for those wins. I think a big part of this Eagles season is that 11 of our 14 games that we've played have been against teams fighting for their lives for the playoffs. I mean, the Chiefs have dropped out at this point, but I'd say when we played the Chiefs, they were, a relevant team and a contender in the league. So they have played one of the tougher schedules I can ever remember an Eagles team playing. It just feels like week in, week out, we have a gauntlet, and it finally is let up here with Raiders and Commanders. And I mean, next week it starts again with the Bills. But they joke about it on Part of My Take, big game Max, because every week the Eagles are on, prime time or America's Game of the Week or playing one of these top teams. I do think there's a chance that we just played so many tough teams that it's hard for me to kill this team for running away with the division and one of the hardest schedules. Has it always looked perfect? Absolutely not. But if they get it right, I'm going to feel pretty dumb for kind of being as negative as I was.
I don't think you should feel that way because, again, if the Eagles are going to be, or the Eagles are truly one of the, 3, 4, whatever best teams in the NFL, they should look good against these teams, right? Like, even if you're playing a harder schedule, even if you're playing, the Chiefs and whatever, teams fighting for them, Minnesota to an extent, but teams fighting for their playoff lives, right? Like, you should really be really good. The defending Super Bowl champions, like we've seen. I mean, the Raiders game is probably the only game where we've seen a consistent, performance by your offense and your defense for 60 minutes, right? Like you'll get a good half out of your offense, in most games, but like you don't get a full performance out of both sides of this team, like ever. So like I wouldn't think that you should feel any weird about the Eagles because they haven't shown you like the dominant Eagles team that they probably could be and should be given the talent. Now, to your point, like I think you're right, like. If they got into the playoffs and lost in the first round, wouldn't be surprised. They made it to the NFC title game, and won and got a Super Bowl. Probably wouldn't be surprised because again, like there's a pretty decent variance with this team. So until they show you consistently that they're a team that at this point right now that can take care of business and give you a full 60 minutes on both sides of the ball, I think it's right to have a little bit of skepticism.
Is there something to be said for obviously like? We're not the Brady Belichick Patriots. We're not the Mahomes Chiefs. We're not the Peyton Manning Colts. I mean, that's a weird comparison. I guess they only we kind of are the Peyton Manning Colts, I guess. But I guess we've seen those teams have maybe years where they sleptwalk through it a little bit, and maybe they go 11-5 or 10-6 or 12-4, whatever it is. But they don't always look like last year's Chiefs, and they don't always look like what we expect. But I felt like those teams got more benefit of the doubt throughout the year. And those teams got more, when it's January, we know they'll show up in a way that nationally, the Eagles don't get that. And maybe it's because they've only won the one ring and it's still fresh. They won it last year. Do you think that they've earned maybe a little bit more leeway and a little bit more kind of rope, I guess I should say, than they're getting with the national media or even the local media, if you want to say?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I think they still need to kind of, show you, again on, at the, in January, that they're for real. But, I've had this discussion with, a few people over the last few weeks. Those teams are different because they had aliens at quarterback. You're going to give the Patriots the benefit of the doubt because of number 12, right? You're going to give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt because of Patrick Mahomes. Like you know that, when the chips are down, like they're going to pull the rabbit out of the hat and do it. Now, granted, we've seen Jalen do it a few times, But again, like I think we need to see it, the royal we, right? The larger we needs to see it again in January. Like if Jalen comes out, in the divisional, in the wild card round and just wills his team back from a 17-point deficit, then I think maybe you get a little bit more leeway, from the national media saying, you know what, maybe he is one of those guys who can kind of elevate his team when the chips are down.
It would be interesting, like the way Jalen gets talked about, I think would change more if they won or made a deep run this year than anything that could have happened last year because of the Saquon narrative and how crazy that ran and how amazing the year was for Saquon. And I mean, you remember I was getting upset about that last year because of the MVP talks, because of Saquon, because I thought that it was having that effect on Jalen and probably not getting him enough attention and respect. And I do think that is partially what happened. With the year Saquon's having, and it would feel like more of Jalen shepherding the team to wherever they're going to get, even though the offense has been so up and down and shaky. I do think if they go on a deep run, it would be interesting to see the way Jalen's talked about at that point. Because it's I can't lie, it is incredibly, incredibly frustrating to me, the way that Jalen is talked about. But not that it's all, he had the worst game of his life against the Chargers. Like, games like that, talk all you want about him. I think it's more, he struggled, I would say, from the Packers game, Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Bears, Chargers stretch. That 5-game stretch, he struggled, which made it so that I was even more frustrated looking back at how we treated the first half of the year. Because I don't think he was struggling nearly as bad as people wanted to make it seem like he was. So anyway, we have plenty of time here to talk about the Eagles. And I guess I'll say for you, do you think there's a chance they get up to the 2 seed? Because I feel like I saw there was a chart that said we had a 17% chance. I was trying to look at the scenarios, and I think you would kind of need Green Bay to win this week and then lose to Baltimore next week. I think there's probably a path with Chicago, but that seems the most likely. And that also means we have to beat the Bills and then play all of our guys in week 18.
Gold Bond knows that every glow up starts with radiant skin. So choose Gold Bond Cocoa Butter Glow for a body lotion that's clinically shown to give you smooth, glowing skin. But don't just take our word for it. 88% of people who tried Gold Bond Cocoa Butter Glow saw glowing skin in just 1 day. Gold Bond Cocoa Butter Glow. Nourish your skin. Reveal your glow. Buy now on Amazon.
Ford was built on the belief that the world doesn't get to decide what you're capable of. You do. So ask yourself, can you or can't you? Can you load up a Ford F-150 and build your dream with sweat and steel? Can you chase thrills and conquer curves in a Mustang? Can you take a Bronco to where the map ends and adventure begins? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Ready, set, Ford.
At IKEA, your dreams can come true. Well, maybe not the ones where you're being chased by a monster. We're talking about kitchen dreams. And there are IKEA products and solutions for all of them. Whether it's a whole new kitchen, a statement glassware set, or just new cutlery. If you got big dreams or small dreams in any size or budget, IKEA can help you bring them to life. Visit IKEA.us/dreamkitchen to learn more. Dream the possibilities.
This is a real good story about Bronx and his dad, Ryan. Real United Airlines customers.
We were returning home, and one of the flight attendants asked Bronx if he wanted to see the flight deck and meet Captain Andrew.
I got to sit in the driver's seat.
I grew up in an aviation family, and seeing Bronx kind of reminded me of myself when I was that age.
That's Andrew, a real United pilot.
These small interactions can shape a kid's future.
It felt like I was the captain.
Allowing my son to see the flight deck will stick with us forever.
That's how good leads the way.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Is it even worth it?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, you're right. Like I think like, there's a path, but I think that path is kind of thin. And I think, as you mentioned before, I think their goal this week is to just destroy the Commanders so you don't have to worry about week 18, right? Just take care of business, lock this division up. Next week against the Bills is going to be, like probably won't win that game. Like let's kind of be honest. So I think their goal and their aim is to say, like, you know what, let's go out, let's give them a good 60 minutes, so we don't have to worry about week 18. We'll just we'll be fine at the 3 seed, because 2-3, I'm not overly concerned about that. Like, to me, that's kind of a coin flip. Doesn't really matter either way. So yeah, so I don't think it's worth it, to be honest, to kind of go for the 2 seed, because you've seen, like, this team, the issue with this team is that, like, a lot of these guys are just banged up, and being able to rest those guys after that Bills game for a couple of weeks, I think that's way more important than the 2 or the 3 seed, however you want to flip it.
Yeah, you get Dickerson and Juergens and Lane and Jalen Carter and a couple of those guys off their feet for 2 full weeks if you can. Like, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
even if you wanted to rest some guys against Buffalo in week 17, but I know that they probably won't do that. I think they're going to
if the game goes out of hand, I think they probably might in the second half, maybe, but yeah, I don't think so.
I think they're going to look at that as like a measuring stick game, and you can kind of play with nothing to lose a little bit. Hopefully that's a game where they can kind of try things, like against Buffalo. Like, that should be a game where you're trying things under center. You're trying new concepts. You're working into the offense. You're trying different players in different roles. Like, that should be a game where you're able to kind of roll the dice a little bit more than you're able to in, these games that are life or death for the playoffs. And like you said, like, the difference in the 2-3 this year, like, I guess most years you look at like the 2-7 matchup and it's like you have this awesome team in the 2 seed and usually like a crappy team sneaking into the 7 seed. The 2 and the 7 are like going to flip depending on who wins this week with like Green Bay and Chicago. Like, it could be like Green Bay is the 2 and Chicago is the 7, or Chicago is the 2 and Detroit is the 7 or something. Like, I don't think that there's much difference between those NFC North teams. So it doesn't bother me. Like you said, I think it's much more important to get the health and the rest that we need than fighting for the 2 seed when you might not even, be able to get there anyway. So there's been a lot of focus on that on my timeline, at least this week. And I'm a little like, all right, but we're the 3 seed guys. Like, let's just get, and by the way, for people out there, it looks like that week 18 Seattle San Fran matchup is going to be, in my opinion, the winner gets the 1 seed and the loser is the 6 seed coming to Philadelphia. I think that's what's going to happen, because I think the Rams are going to win out. They have a pretty easy path here.
I agree.
I think is it like, who are they playing this week? The Rams. Why am I blanking?
They are.
Oh wait, they just played. Yeah. They just played Seattle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they have 2 easy games. I know one of them's Arizona. I think Minnesota is the other one. I forget who it is, but 2 easy games. They're going to be the 5 seed, I think. So it sets us up that we're going to play Seattle or San Fran, in my opinion, coming to Philly. I think the most popular opinion on that would probably be San Fran's easier than Seattle. To me, give me Sam Darnold coming into Philadelphia.
Yeah, give me Seattle.
Yeah, I'm afraid of San Fran.
I'm not afraid of San Fran. But I think Seattle is a team. I've seen now people saying, like, they're kind of one-dimensional-ish. I don't think they're one-dimensional, but I mean, I think they're a team that defensively you match up better against than a team like San Fran, for sure. Because Kittle can give you some issues. Obviously, CMC is CMC, but I think if like that, like, our defense can do a pretty decent job of containing JSN, and if you contain JSN and keep that run in check, I mean, Seattle, I think, is a team that you can take care of.
And the thing about Darnold that's so weird about him as a player, and obviously he's like, whatever, 26-6 over the last 2 years or whatever his record is now in Minnesota and Seattle. Mm-hmm. But he's not a game manager. Like, it's not a guy who he's like, oh, he's just going to keep it on track and play good for the defense and, keep the trains on time or whatever it is. He's going to throw 2 or 3 chances for a defense to completely swing a game every game. It's just about if it comes through and if the guy catches it or if he's in the right spot for that. He makes 2 or 3 bonehead throws every single game. And he gets away with it sometimes. Yeah. But man, I can't imagine he would against the Eagles defense.
No. Yeah, because what was that? The 4 interception game he had a few weeks ago. Like, he's going to give you the chances, right? Like, it's, and now that our defensive backs actually catch the ball now, like we're gonna get some of these interceptions. So yes, I much rather would play Seattle at home in that first week for sure than San Fran. Yeah, San Fran's a little underrated, to be honest. Like I don't think they're good, but I think they're good enough to knock off a team in that first round for sure.
I think they might be the second best team in the NFC. It depends on us. It's either us or them, in my opinion. I think it's LA 1, San Fran and Philly 2, 3, and then I think the rest of the teams, not the NFC South team, but the rest of the playoff teams the same, like Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit, Seattle. I'd probably give Seattle the nod over those guys, but also Sam Darnold probably makes me more nervous than any of the other quarterbacks do for those teams. So Seattle's a weird situation. I want them. I want Seattle coming to Philly in round one. If you're asking me what my preferred matchup would be, like I said, I've got Jalen Hurts touchdown in this one. I've got the teaser with the Eagles and the Lions. My other bets, just real quick, I don't have a lot of bets on the slate this week. I only have 3 tomorrow. Josh Allen touchdown, which is just an auto bet for me every week, and then I'm going with the Jags plus 3.5 at the Broncos. I'm kind of buying into this Trevor Lawrence, kind of how he's been looking over these last couple of weeks. It's been rough competition, but I think Liam Cohen is doing a great job there. And I do think big win last week for Denver. There's got to be some emotional letdown. The other factor of this is it's kind of more important for Jacksonville. Jacksonville's fighting for the division, whereas if Denver loses this game, they're still probably going to get the 1 seed, to be honest, if you look at it. So I kind of like Jacksonville to win this game. And then I'm going to go with Atlanta in the Arizona game, which I don't like betting on completely meaningless games at this point in the year. But I think Jonathan Gannon is one of the worst head coaches we've ever seen. And when he gets fired this year, I think we could make an argument that he's had one of the least memorable and notable 3+ year coaching tenures of the last 20 years in the NFL. I think people are going to whoever the Cardinals hire, people are going to be like Cliff Kingsbury got fired and then they brought in Joe Brady or whoever it is. Right. People are going to forget that he even coached the Cardinals, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is kind of, a nothing kind of tenure so far for Gannon and the Cardinals. Yeah, there's not a lot of bets I like on the slate this week. I haven't really taken a deep dive in that. I do I love the Lions this week against the Steelers. I just think that's just a double-digit win for the Lions. It's a bad spot for the Steelers. Lions really need to win. I mean, they're not going to, they're probably not going to win the division, but they need to win. So I think the Lions are going to be super motivated to beat the Steelers team. I have no problem laying a 7 on that game.
I'll tell you this right now. Chicago Bears fans, cover your ears. You might not want to hear it. You're 10-4. You're sitting in the 2 seed right now. I think there's a very good chance that week 18, Bears-Lions, is winning you're in, losing you're sitting on your couch for both teams. If you look at it, the Bears just have to lose one of their next 2 games for that to be the case. They need to win out for that not to be the case, realistically. So I think Chicago, you're feeling great right now. You're 10-4. I would hate to see how Bears fans would feel going 11-6 and missing the playoffs in a 7-team field.
Looking at that NFC South champion, kind of get in. Looking at the Carolina.
You mean like Notre Dame staring at JMU and Tulane today?
There you go. The AAA of the NFL. If you want to take Nick Saban's quote out of context, yeah.
Unreal. Yeah. Any other any games? I mean, let me real quick pull up the kind of good games that I missed.
Yeah, nothing. I'm trying to look at it. I'm looking at it right now. Nothing really jumps off to me. You're right. There's so many just inconsequential games this week, and I know it seems like a little early. It seems like a week early for a bunch of. There's a bunch of games that just do not matter this week. A bunch of 4-10 and 5-9 teams and things like that. Okay. So yeah, I'm not really in love with these games.
The 3 games rapid fire, because I don't have any bets on any of these games. I'm not sure on any of what happens in any of these games. Very confused on these ones. Green Bay, Chicago to me tonight is such a stay away. When you lose Micah Parsons, I have no idea what that defense is going to look like without Parsons. Yeah, it's such an unknown to me. I would lean Green Bay, I think, to win that game. And that line has shifted from -2.5 to +1.5 for Green Bay. I guess I lean Green Bay there. I wouldn't touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
Is Watson playing tonight? Is he questionable?
I think from what I saw, I think he's questionable, but I think he's going to play.
Okay. So I'd probably pick Green Bay if he plays, but you're right. I don't touch that game at all. I do not.
He's got lines, he's got gambling lines here, 54.5. Okay. So I think he's probably going to play. Then the other 2 games, we just mentioned it, Tampa, Carolina, the NFC South Invitational here. I think Carolina probably wins the home game for Tampa to win the home game in 2 more weeks. These teams stink.
They're not good. They're not good. I don't know. It's a really bad. I might take Tampa in this one. I still have a feel for this game. Yeah, I don't know. Give me Tampa. Sure, why not?
And then the last one, Sunday Night Football. We'll close the show on this one. We've got New England at Baltimore, and what some people are calling the weirdest line of the year here with the Ravens -3, the 7-7 Ravens favored over the 11-3 Patriots. I think there's multiple factors to that. Vegas has not given up their belief in the Ravens since week 1. I mean, you can go through each game that Lamar's played, and they believe in the Lamar Ravens. Whether that's been founded or not, that's another conversation. And the other side, New England, they have the ability to look at the New England Patriots' strength of schedule, just like all of us do. And they can see that they have played a really, really weak schedule. So I lean the Ravens probably win this game, but I definitely am not laying 3 points with the Ravens.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll take Ravens money line for sure. Like, I think this is you're right. I think it's just one of the Vegas things where the Vegas just hasn't kind of caught up to it. And we saw that with the Eagles, like earlier this year, right? When the Eagles, they were 7-point favorites against the Bears here, right? Like the way the Eagles were playing, there was no way they should have been 7-point favorites against the Bears. So the Ravens should not be 3-point favorites at home against the Patriots, who, by the way, Drake makes 6-0 this year on the road. I mean, the Patriots play really well on the road, but yeah, I think the Ravens, in this spot, I think they probably needed a little bit more. Well, they do need it a little bit more than the Patriots. So I think they win. Don't love the 3 though. Don't love the 3 at all.
They are 6-4 in games Lamar has started and finished, which is an interesting stat. I feel like if you listen to anybody talk about the Ravens, it's just a lot of people crapping on the Ravens, which is fair. They have not lived up to expectations, but a lot of that is injuries out there, and not just Lamar. There's been other injuries as well. So, hey, just like I talked about with the Eagles being this team that have they earned the leeway, the Ravens have not earned that leeway in January,
No.
but maybe there's a chance that the Ravens get into January, and in this field where you don't have Mahomes, you don't have Burrow, maybe the Bills are a little, weak, potentially weak and vulnerable. Maybe the Ravens sneak in the back door and, go on a little run that finally, it's the opposite way for Lamar. Lamar has these MVP seasons and 14-win seasons where then they lose early in the playoffs. Maybe they go 8-9 and then make the Super Bowl.
It would be funny, right? Because we came to the season and we were like, all right, this is a season of reckoning for either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, or maybe both, right? And so now, like, the way the path looks, like, it looks like it has to be Josh Allen in the AFC. Like, Josh Allen has no excuse, right, to kind of not come out of the AFC this year. It would be funny, right, if Josh Allen has, the golden path ahead of him to kind of get caught by a Ravens team that has just been utterly, uninspiring all year. And so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, but I just don't see any path where it's not Josh Allen and the Bills coming out of the AFC this year.
I think that's going to be the 4-5 matchup in the AFC, by the way, Buffalo-Baltimore.
Buffalo-Baltimore?
If Baltimore sneaks into that division, Buffalo gets the top wild card. That is a fun, regardless of what the Bills or what the Ravens have been this year, yeah. I think it would be fun to get Lamar Josh in round 1, especially because it's in Baltimore. So it shifts the
even things out
in Buffalo. Right. Yeah, it'd be very, very interesting. Roy, great stuff as always. Everybody go follow Roy at the BS line. Check out all he's got going on over there. Any plugs for me, Roy?
Yeah, tonight, actually, before and after the Sixers game, I'll be over with the PHLY Sixers guys doing pregame and postgame for the game. So if you want to watch the Sixers game, want to watch pregame and postgame with us over at All PHLY, go check me out. Me and Devon Givens on the mic tonight for the Sixers game.
Roy and Devon are the best. They do great work over there at PHLY. Go in and check in after Valdez Drexel Edgecombe Jr. wins us another one tonight. So there it is. Get ready, folks, for an all-time sports day. We got 3 college football playoff games. We got an Eagles game. We got Packers-Bears at 8:20. I kind of forgotten, honestly, until we're talking that game was. I'm so focused on the Eagles for the football today. But you got that NFL game. We got the Sixers at 7. Great stuff, folks. We have a big day ahead of us. So, order your pizza, order your wings, get your beer, whatever you got to do, because we got a long day ahead of us of nothing but sports. And Roy, you got us prepared for that. So thank you so much, man. Everybody go check him out at the BS line and check out, like you said, everything he's doing at PHLY. And thanks for watching Saturday Morning Spread, Eagles Pin Pull Country. Let's rock.